Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bible Study Live. So interesting. Once I push the buttons for streaming and recording, then my mouth and my words don't match. So I'm always staring at myself like, why is my face moving after or before? It's just really weird. But that's okay. That's okay. So today is Thursday, December 16th, 2021. This is the second to, let's see, we've got two more Thursdays in this whole year. There are only two more Thursdays, which is really crazy. So I am already in my pajamas. I'm cozy in my robe, and I decided I wasn't going to refresh my lipstick. I'm just going to do Bible study. We're just going to talk about it. So um, tonight we're talking about, and my sister is here, my sister Gina. You'll see her in a few moments. I know she's waving to me. Hi, sister. So you'll see her in a second. She's blowing kisses. Mwah. um, we're talking about jealousy and friendship, and the how they can sometimes be intertwined, jealousy and friendship. And we're really studying tonight Saul's relationship with David versus his son Jonathan's relationship with David. So we're going to be reading from 1 Samuel 18 and then a little bit of 19. And this is going to be a two-part series. So we're going to start here. We'll pick up next week with a little bit more on the story of Jonathan and David. And I won't read it all in order. I'll pick out some specific passages that I really want to share. And there are also some in Proverbs. So I want to make sure that we have a chance to get to those. But this time I'm starting at the beginning with Saul and David, which is such an interesting situation. So if you recall, we read about David killing Goliath and how David was not moved by Goliath and his bully self. That didn't do anything for him. And at the end of 1 Samuel 17, Saul was so impressed with David, he sent word to say, who is that? Like, who just fought on our behalf, killed Goliath? I mean, just impressed. And he said, it ends with David saying, I am the son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem. That's where it ends. That's where chapter 17 ends. He's just killed Goliath. Saul is, feeling him. Just like, you were the dude. You did it. You didn't even need to wear my armor. It was too big for you. You were like, I got this. Let me just take my little slingshot. I got this. I'm not afraid. I'm not going to go in hiding. I will do this for the kingdom and with God on my side. And he did. You get to the very next chapter and things go awry. So let's take a look. We're going to start at verse 1. So this is right after David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David. So we go right away into friendship. Jonathan and David became friends, and he loved him as himself. Now, there are a couple of times, I'm always reading from NIV because it's just easy to understand, but there are times when the way that they phrase it in the King James Version just gives a different meaning, and I want to just share that a little bit. It says, and it came to pass when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And I want to stop there for a moment. Well, I'll stop at the end of the paragraph. It says, from that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return to his father's house. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. And that's all it says at the beginning of chapter 18 about David and Jonathan. Now, for those of you who have close friends, and sometimes it might be a sister, but close friends where you would literally give them the shirt off your back, that you love them, you would take a bullet for them. if they called and said, I need help burying the body, you would know they must have, I don't know what happened, but clearly, you know, I'm your ride or die. And granted, we're not trying to encourage criminal activity, but let's just say, you know, there was a sitch and they needed your help and it didn't matter where they were. And I'll give you an example. There was this girl who considered herself my friend. And one day we were playing, and anybody who knows me well knows that I have never done drugs. I don't do drugs. And we were playing. There was a group of us. We had gone away for to a beach house, and there was all of this white sand, and it was really cool. And I was like, "Oh, it's white sand!" And I like pick up like a pin and pretend to like snort white sand. It's something that it clearly wasn't snortable. I wasn't snorting. Well, she took pictures, and she said she was going to blackmail me with these pictures, and she thought it was so funny to talk about how she was going to blackmail me with these pictures of me pretending to snort. We ended up not being friends, but one of the things that I said to her was, the people who are really my friends, I don't care what kind of photographic proof you had, they would never believe that I snorted coke. They would not believe it. I don't care what proof you had. And she kept looking at me like I was speaking crazy. And I said, my actual friends, number one, they wouldn't play like that. But number two, if you even tried to tell them that that's what was going on, they would say, not Connie. And there are those friends that you have, hopefully, and not everybody has good friends like this, but hopefully there are friends that you know that well, that you know them and they know you, that if somebody came to them and said, you know, I saw Gina out there in the middle of the boulevard twerking it up in a teddy, that they would say, not Gina Rozier. You may have seen somebody else, but it wasn't Gina Rozier. They know her well enough. They're her friend. They're her, and whatever she needs, they're going to be there. And if somebody tried to come to them and say something negative about Gina, it wasn't her. I don't care. She may have looked like Gina. It wasn't Gina, because they know her. They know her character. And there are times when you meet somebody like that and immediately you're connected with them. You can't even explain it. You meet them and you think, I love her. I just love her. We're going to be friends. And I have so many friends that are like that in my life. I've been very, 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 very fortunate. I'm thinking right now about my friend Lupe and how I met Lupe when we interviewed to be flight attendants. And I said, if we get the job, we need to be roommates. Period. I mean, we knew each other for all of 20 minutes, but it was immediate. I knew her. I saw her. I got her. I loved her immediately. And to me, when I read this scripture about Jonathan and David, I feel it's like that. Like immediately they were ride or die. They were like, that is my dude. That is my dude. And it went on. They had a friendship and they got to know each other even better, but it was just immediate. And every now and then you meet somebody and it's immediate like that. My Springle is like that too. There, I have so many. There are so many. I can't even get started because I'm gonna leave somebody out. And my great friends, their feelings won't even get hurt because they'll know the list is too long. But I will tell you, this is another funny story. So my friend Crystal was at my house a couple of weekends ago, and she gave me a bunch of Christmas decorations. And in giving me these decorations, I found her stocking that said her name on it, and then a bunch of handmade and personalized Christmas ornaments that were in her daughter's name. They were in her name, and I was just like, oh, these are too precious. She didn't mean to give me all of that. So since I had a stocking with her name on it, I put those ornaments in the stocking and flipped it so that it was clear her name was, so I wouldn't forget. Because you know me, I'd have put it somewhere in a drawer. So, but I said, let me leave it out, set it on the table so that when I see her, I can remember to give it to her. Of course, I forgot, but she saw it because it was out on a table. And she was like, the rest of my stockings are hung on the chimney with care. And so she immediately came to me and she said, why isn't my stocking up on that mantle? And she was mostly playing, but she also was looking for like, girl, what's going on? And I was like, you know, I have a good reason. And I don't know if I reached into it or she did, but we reached into the stocking and I said, I found this in the decorations you gave me, and I found this in the decorations you gave me, and I found this in the decorations you gave me, and I knew you didn't mean to give me those. And the only place I could think to keep them was in the stocking with your name on it. And I said, you know, I would never leave you out. And she said, I know you would never leave me out. That's why I couldn't figure out why I wasn't up there. So she was mostly kidding. She was, you know, a little bit like, how come my stocking's not up there? But she wasn't really offended because she also knew I knew you had a good reason. That it wasn't just like, oh, everybody's stocking is going up there, but hers. Let me set that to the side. She knew that's not my character. And that's what you want. You want that kind of good friend. You really do. I do. I have wonderful, wonderful sister friends who know me, who get me, who I get and I know. And, you know, I'm looking at my sister right now who, as you guys have seen all year long, she gave me the best Christmas present ever last year. It was a monthly subscription to Jigsaw Puzzles. Oh, my heart. She knows me. She knew that that would make me so happy. And it has been, and I think every month I'm like, thank you again for my Christmas present. Because it's just, I'm so grateful. It has given me a year's worth of joy. And she knows that. It has been literally every single month I have something to be joyful about. And she knew me well enough to know that that would be the case. She didn't send me, you know, fruit of the month basket. That wouldn't have done it. Mm-mm. No kind of food would have done it. None. I don't care if it was chocolate, turtles, stuff I like. A basket full of Snickers every month. Them Snickers would be moldy, and she knows that. But a puzzle a month? Oh yeah, she knew. She knew. She knows me. All right. I digress. So we're talking about David and Saul now. So in verse 5 of chapter 18, it says, whatever Saul sent him to do, David did it so successfully that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the people and Saul's officers as well. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing, with joyful songs and with tambourines and lutes. As they danced, they sang. Saul was slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. Hold up. I don't like that song. Saul was very angry. This refrain galled him. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. The next day, an evil spirit from God came forcefully upon Saul. I'm not going to get into evil spirit from God. We're not going to talk about that today. That'll be another conversation. But an evil spirit from God came forcefully upon Saul. He was prophesying in his house while David was playing the harp, because that's what David would do, is he played the harp and played different instruments to calm Saul's spirit. So he's over there playing the harp as he usually did, it said. Saul had a spear in his hand and he hurled it, saying to himself, I'll pin David to the wall. But David eluded him twice. Seriously now, let's back up a second. This is the same David who killed Goliath. He's playing music for you in your house. Everything he does, it's at your direction. This evil spirit, and that's why jealousy really is a spirit. It really is a spirit. It came upon him. Can you imagine that this is how he's usually playing the harp. And this day, Saul is like, there's something I can throw at this dude. Pin him. I'm going to pin him to the... Twice! David was like, what's happening? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? You know, this gets into frenemy territory, and it's pretty bad. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with David but had left Saul. And see, again, that seems like it counter um, acts. That's not the word. That's the word I mean, Gene. It seems opposite from the next day an evil spirit from God came forcefully upon Saul. And then it says, the Lord was with David but had left Saul. And, there is an anointing. There's an anointing in leadership. There's an anointing on a person. And you can tell when that person's kind of in the zone and they're doing their thing. And if you're not there, it's interesting because it's not just jealousy, it's fear. It says he was afraid of David. In jealousy, there's an interesting piece of jealousy that to me deals with fear of how I see myself, fear of what other people will say, fear that somebody might be considered better than me. Like fear and jealousy, it's interesting that they go hand in hand and they're destroying the respect and the friendship or admiration that Saul had for 5 minutes about David. So he sent David away from him and gave him command over 1,000 men, and David led the troops in their campaigns. This is another one of those verses that I have to read it in both. It says, in everything he did, he had great success because the Lord was with him. But in the King James Version, it says, and David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. And there's a difference between in everything he did, he had great success, and he behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. But I do think there's obviously a correlation. Behaving wisely and having great success. There's, can't ignore the fact that they could replace one verse with the other is interesting. When Saul saw when Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. Again, jealousy led to fear. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he led them in their campaigns. Saul said to David, here is my older daughter Merab. I will give her to you in marriage. Only serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord. For Saul said to himself, I will not raise a hand against him. Let the Philistines do that. So interesting. And again, this is how you know Bible is inspired. Because how do we know what Saul's thinking? But that's what he was thinking. So somebody told, whoever was writing this is what Saul was thinking. But again, it's interesting. If you've ever dealt with a frenemy, as I was sharing with you, that woman who decided, I know what I'll do. I'll take a picture and then I'll blackmail her. And yet she's calling herself my friend. She wanted to hang out with me. She wanted to be around me. And yet there was this jealousy and scheming. And that's what Saul was doing with David, scheming because he was afraid. So it says, but David said to Saul, who am I? And what is my family or my father's clan in Israel that I should become the king's son-in-law? So when the time came for Merab, Saul's daughter, to be given to David, she was given in marriage to Adriel of Meholah. He was like, I'm not doing that. Yay, no thank you. I'm going to stay in my lane and do me. Now Saul's daughter, Michal, or Michelle, I like Michael, Michal, could be anything. Could be Michelle, Michael. We're going to call her Michal today. So Saul's daughter Michal was in love with David, and when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. I will give her to him, he thought, so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. Still scheming. So Saul said to David, now you have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law. Let me stop here again. You know what? What bothers me about this is the two-faced nature of it. Like he's offering him something like, you've got a second opportunity to become my son-in-law. Like he's being earnest. And yet he's looking to do it as a snare. And only discernment can help you know when you're dealing with that. And sometimes even when you are dealing with it, you still got to walk it out. I think about Jesus with Judas. He knew, and yet he was like, okay, I'm going to keep my enemy close. It's a shame. Some people don't have your interest, your best interest at heart. Then Saul ordered his attendants, speak to David privately and say, look, the king is pleased with you, and his attendants all like you. Now become his son-in-law. They repeated these words to David, but David said, do you think it is a small matter to become the king's son-in-law? I'm only a poor man and little known. When Saul's servants told him what David had said, Saul replied, say to David, the king wants no other price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge on his enemies. Yuck, just saying. Anyway, Saul's plan was to have David fall by the hands of the Philistines. When the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. So before the allotted time elapsed, David and his men went out and killed 200 Philistines, not 100, 200 Philistines. He brought their foreskins and presented the full number to the king so that he might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Michal in marriage. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David and that his daughter Michal loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him, and he remained his enemy the rest of his days. The Philistine commanders continued to go out to battle, and as often as they did, David met with more success than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name became well known. And I'm just going to read up to verse 10 in chapter 19. It says, Saul told his son Jonathan and all his attendants to kill David. But Jonathan was very fond of David and warned him, my father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Be on your guard tomorrow morning. Go into hiding and stay there. I will go out and stand with my father in the field where you are. I'll speak to him about you and will tell you what I find out. Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul his father and said to him, let not the king do wrong to a servant David. He has not wronged you, and what he has done has benefited you greatly. He took his life in his hands when he killed the Philistine, Goliath they're talking about. The Lord won a great victory for all Israel, and you saw it and were glad. Why then would you do wrong to an innocent man like David by killing him for no reason? Saul listened to Jonathan and took this oath. As surely as the Lord lives, David will not be put to death. So Jonathan called David and told him the whole conversation. He brought him to Saul, and David was with Saul as before. Once more, war broke out, and David went out and fought the Philistines. He struck them with such force that they fled before him. But an evil spirit from the Lord came upon Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand. He needed to get rid of that spear. While David was playing the harp, Saul tried to pin him to the wall with his spear. But David eluded him as Saul drove the spear into the wall. That night, David made good his escape. Whew. I can't even imagine somebody that, has said, not going to try to kill you. They're not going to be ugly to you. They appreciate you. Just come back, my son. Play music for me. I'm good. And then here they are like, can you imagine? I mean, it's just crazy. And yet, the part that really got to me is you were glad. You saw it and you were glad. Like David did something that benefited you greatly, and you saw it, and you were glad. And now, what are you doing? And, with frenemies, with people who aren't earnest in their friendship, or maybe who are just weak spiritually, where, fear overcomes them, and, one moment they're your friend, the next minute they're afraid, they're jealous, and they start spreading lies. I've been in that position where somebody who I thought was a friend just suddenly started spreading lies. And I felt the same way, like, oh my gosh, I've only been a friend to you. I've opened my home to you. I've paid your expenses when you needed, when I've loaned you money. I didn't even just loan you money. I gave you money. Like, why are you mad at me? I love you. You know what? Jealousy and friendship, that can get real tricky. It can get real tricky. And just looking at how they're interchanging jealousy and fear, and then almost, that spiritual aspect of something comes upon them and they're just looking to do harm. They're just looking to, I want to drive a spear into your, okay, I'm sorry, I thought we were like, what just happened? We were buddies a minute ago. It's really something. um I was having a conversation with another friend of mine about somebody who's supposed to be a friend to another person, and they're not showing themselves friendly at all. They're saying horrible things behind that person's back. And that's hard for me because, that the defender in me, the one that battles bullies, wants to say something. And I've said things directly when they try to bring the nonsense to me. But I want to warn my friend, our mutual friend, actually is my friend, not theirs as far as I'm concerned. They're the Saul in the picture, and I'm the Jonathan. And I want to warn them and say, yeah, they're killing you with their words. I know you've known them longer than you've even known me, but they're killing you with their words. God hasn't told me to do that yet. I'm just praying. And when they come to me with their ugly words, I'm shutting them down and saying, I'm sorry, you're out of line. That is hard for me. People who call themselves your friend. And, they even mentioned this 40 years of friendship. I know what I'm talking about. I can say what I'm like, you know what? I don't know what that's 40 years of, but it's not friendship. That's what I do know. That's not friendship. So, anyway, that's tonight's message about jealousy and friendship. And I'm going to unpin myself if I can figure out how to do it. Let's see. Remove pin. Oh, there's my sister. There she is. Hello, beautiful sister.
Hi, little sister.
Do you have anything to add about jealousy and friendship?
I think jealousy is such an two things. I think it's such an immature emotion, and as such, I think it's an easy an easy emotion. I think it, you know what I mean? I see it in children so easily and so quickly. I see it in animals. Like it's a base emotion, and therefore I think it's a common emotion. It's an easy thing
Mm,
to fall into. And I think it takes a level of maturity to recognize it and um, to recognize that someone else's gain is not your loss. I mean, it might be. I mean, every once in a while, somebody gets the guy you wanted, or the girl you wanted, or the thing you wanted, and the job you wanted, or whatever. Um, but jealousy is such a negative and destructive emotion. I can't think of, like, fear. Sometimes fear is good, right? Sometimes fear is like, don't put your hand on the stove, don't
right,
step in front
right.
of the car, you know.
But is that
I
fear or is it wisdom?
sometimes fear saves you from the unknown, right? Like, at least
Oh, I
you
see.
don't know
Mm-hmm.
what you're going to run into, so you're cautious at least. Um, so I think that sometimes fear has a use. I'm trying to understand what the use is for jealousy. Is there anything positive there? I don't think so. I don't even think it motivates you to do better, be better, try hard. You know what I mean? I don't even think it
Right.
does that. It really just makes you want to tear
The other
down.
person down.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. Um, and it makes you ungenerous. And yeah, so but because I see it, like I said, even in animals,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's there.
Yeah.
I feel like it's something we're
Agreed.
born with. And it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because people think kids are so pure and giving and loving, and nobody who's ever had a kid thinks that, right? When you've watched a 2-year-old go bop another 2-year-old because they have something they want. Um, so I'm wondering, that whole evil spirit from the Lord thing, you said we talked about that another time, but I'm wondering if jealousy is that evil spirit from the Lord, something we're born with. Do you know what I mean? Something that we come here
Mm-hmm.
with, but that has no positive use.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to do some studying on that before I talk about it with any kind of, I mean, I have my opinions, but you're
Yeah.
right. And I do like what you're saying in terms of that base emotion. It is. Jealousy is such a sign of immaturity.
Mhm.
It is such a sign of immaturity. And when, I mean, even we always end up going political. We don't mean to, but even looking back at the last administration and that jealousy of, no, mine was bigger. Mine was bigger. Just like, oh my gosh, just
Yeah.
you can look at it and say there is nothing noble about jealousy.
No, it's um and in some cases it's so childish that it's almost comical.
Yeah,
But yeah, it is not. I'm looking for the positive. Most things are double edged. You can figure
right,
out, well, I can see
right.
why we developed this because we needed it to do. Da-da-da-da. I'm struggling with jealousy. I don't know what we developed jealousy for. It is, you know, you can be ambitious without being jealous. You can
Exactly.
see what someone else has and say, hey, now, I
Right,
didn't even know getting that was a possibility. or, or what did you do to get that? Let me
right.
talk to me. Tell me how um, and maybe okay. So in thinking about it, I could see how jealousy would incentivize mating. Like that's the one area that I can see that. So you haven't made a commitment to somebody, but you don't want someone else to have, when you feel that emotion of, wait, that's mine. Now that would incentivize pairing. So maybe
Mm,
that's the positive side of jealousy, is that it creates a reason for to be monogamous, which, to create a family unit. It's you know what I mean?
it could.
Um, which is
Hmm.
a survival thing, right?
Right. It could.
It
But
could.
not every union needs that. So,
Well, no, but I'm just trying to think of,
yeah, some silver lining.
so where's the positive? But that is one, much like, to me, the pursuit of riches um, that can go off the rails really
Right.
easily, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like there's a reason for it. Like you can use it for good, but boy, that good part is real
Right. It's
narrow next to
real,
the
real
the
thin.
rest
Yes.
of it, right? So yeah, um, yeah, that's the only I. It's interesting that kids and animals have it, and that it is so potent even when it's not in a mating context.
Yep.
So
Yeah. It's interesting.
it's real interesting,
It's
really very
interesting.
interesting. Hmm.
So, anyway, thank you everyone for being with us for Bible Study Live. And we will see you next week for part two. We're going to look at Jonathan and David a little bit more and a little bit more of Saul's shenanigans. He just kept coming after him, hurling spears at him in the middle of
Right? What is that
hurling.
all about?
Right,
Dude, it didn't work the last two times. What are you?
right. Here you are throwing another spear at me. I can
Right?
only imagine.
And to have favor with God and then lose it, and then keep cutting up. It's like, wouldn't
Right.
you be? Or maybe you're just completely twisted now, and you think, well, if he's out of the way, I'll get favor back. You know what I mean? I don't know. Clear. It all sounds a little mentally ill to me.
Something's wrong. I mean,
Yeah,
and
it
this
all
is
sounds like he's
before
not
he
entirely
pulls up the
correct.
witch. So,
Yeah, yeah, he
yeah.
doesn't sound entirely correct to me by
No.
the by this
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah. He's he's untethered. So
Untethered. Yes. Hmm.
anyway, All right, everyone. We will see you next week on the 23rd. So, trying to think. Yeah, trying to think. There's something I have to remember for the 23rd, but I'll remember it. Okay, so see you next week. Bye, everybody.